Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. And so I just want to do a little introduction, something that I find, fascinating and, or maybe just informative at least, and something that I haven't talked about it in this way in the past. And that is the optimal system that you have on the material plane of existence, a governmental system, a social system, a cultural system, or even a family system. Everyone is judged equally. Like everyone gets the same treatment. The rules apply to everyone the same way, and the system is governed in such a way that everything's fair. Right? That would be the ideal. But even with that, that is not the ideal. The way it is now, of course, there's people with money, people with different countries, people with different skin colors, people with different, whatever it is, right? Whatever the prevailing power structure is. Some people get better treatment than others, and some people get unfair treatment, whatever. But the judgment is all based in superficial things: how much money you have, how good looking you are you obese, are you dark skinned, are you light skinned, are you what do you how do you come across when people see you? What's your personality like? What's your power level in terms of money and these things, right? Superficial aspects, and the beast caters to these things, favoring some people, condemning others. But what the system doesn't take into account is that even though people look the same and in some cases act the same, there is levels of spiritual development. And in the divine system, that's how you're judged, because the divine system, which is perfect and impeccable and natural, right? It just flows naturally. There is consideration for your spiritual development, right? You have people on the lowest level of spiritual development, and these people they judge everything by the superficial aspect of things on face value. And they're, blame oriented people, cause and effect, binary, binary Fs, as I call them, on, off, left, right, black, white, liberal, conservative, whatever, right? Down the line. And they don't look at the depths of any sort of situation. They don't look beyond the superficial aspect of what's going on. And the media functions on that level. I mean, they might get a little bit more compassionate towards Joe Biden or somebody that they're propping up, but for the most part, it's cause and effect. Sometimes they minimize the effect, or they, minimize the cause, or they don't even look at the cause. But in general, it's cause and effect, black and white. Very blaming, right? You're a hero, tomorrow you're, what used to be called a goat, a villain, whatever. Winners and losers, and you're to blame if you're a loser. And a winner, you get all the credit. There's no sense of, any sort of divine system, especially in America, where you're supposed to, just will yourself to be successful, and you can do anything if you set your mind to it. This kind of thing, you can be anything you want, and that's clearly not the case, right? And it's a very immature system here, but globally. And the most important piece missing is soul development. Where's your soul? Where's your spiritual approach? What level are you on spiritually? Because if you're on a higher level spiritually, there needs to be more accountability for those people, personal accountability, where they realize that they can't be dragged down to the lower levels of consciousness and be sucked into the drama and all of it. Because on a spiritual level, you're going to be judged, and I don't want to say judged because it's not, judging implies some sort of external force that's like God sitting in some throne somewhere and, St. Peter letting you into heaven or not. It's not like that at all. It's, you yourself, that's your soul, and the part of you that's divine, that's in a sense doing the judging, right? And you have a higher standard. More is expected from you. You shouldn't need laws. Like, you shouldn't need the laws that are, in place for people on a lower level of consciousness, because you should never contemplate doing those things, right? You don't need commandments. You don't need these things because you would just never do them. You're not going to murder people. You're not going to steal, these things. I mean, you shouldn't. Like, you shouldn't get sucked into that level of behavior because you're on a higher plane of existence, a higher standard, because you've evolved. And it's not like some sense of superiority because, spiritually and every other possible way, that's something that, your placement at a higher level and your any kind of achievement, you've had whatever time, more time as as a higher level conscious being or something, whatever it might be. I mean, there's reasons for it, right? And everyone has their place in society. I just, one of my dogs is wet, so Tulsi is sleeping in her bed. And Buddy loves to be here when I'm doing these, work here. And he runs into the room first chance he gets. And I came in, and the comforter was just filled with like dirt and leaves, and I don't know what he was doing. And I kind of got mad. Not like real mad, but it was a bummer. But I just picked him up, and I'm not going to verbalize anything to him because it's not his fault, right? Like he doesn't know. He's a dog. He's a nice dog. Whatever. He's a good heart, right? He's not out there. I'm going to go get as dirty as possible, then go jump on that MMF for his bed. Like he's not like out to get me, right? He's no consciousness of it, right? And dogs, animals, sometimes people attribute a standard to them that doesn't exist, right? Like I make jokes with my wife when we're walking in nature, and the dogs will run up ahead and scare the animals that we want to see, frogs or whatever, birds, things like that. And I'll say, oh man, they're so narcissistic, right? It's a joke because, they're just they're functioning pretty much on the maximum of their capacity. And as you move through, humanity, the various human beings, and, there's a level of soul accomplishment. There's a level of spiritual development that, there's a spectrum, and there's the distance between the lowest level humans and the highest is like, as Chargy put it in the Sajmark system, 1,000 times greater than the distance between an amoeba and a human. There's a wide, gap between, in terms of the spectrum of human development on a spiritual level. Like where you start off from as a human being and your full potential as a realized soul, someone who's merged back into the source, is a bigger gap than the lowest level life form and the highest level life form, right? So, this is something that there should be some awareness of that because there's some depth that needs to take place in an immature society, an immature world. And the problem is that people with higher developed souls and spiritual tendencies are condemned, especially in the West, in Europe and America. It has no value. And, they want to bring you down to a lower level. Even people who are just sort of flirting with the idea of being a spiritual person. Like if you just have a little bit of spiritual advancement. Look at what they've done to saints and spiritual people. And look at what they've done to everyone else in terms of working against people's spiritual evolution, religions being the big problem. Religions are, working towards you not doing everything to block you from advancing spiritually, which is completely effed up, but that's how they make their money. That's how they run their game, right? And so saints need to be supported. So you have higher developed souls that can help pull everyone up, and they need to be supported. They have to go through their difficulties, and you evolve spiritually through your obstacles and things like that. But society has to view these people, higher developed souls, and anybody with spiritual capabilities as being valuable in some way. And there has to be some support there, or there should be, because, and some recognition, right? But if you're going to demonize anybody, I've talked about this before when I played sports, if somebody called you soft, like you were supposed to like fight them, right? It was really a bad insult. And I was reading the Sajmark system's, literature about having a soft heart and being, softer as a person, compassionate and these things. And I never really had thought about it. And I was like, yeah, that is kind of better, and everything that I was trained as an American was the opposite, right? You're supposed to be hard. You're supposed to be aggressive. You're supposed to have a killer instinct, right? People who are soft are considered weak, and, enduring pain, the softer you are, the more pain that you feel. So soft people actually, if you have, and not a weakness or a cowardice, I'm talking about something where you open up and you feel the pain that's there instead of putting up, walls and, doing whatever you can, psychological walls and defense, employing defense mechanisms to keep you from feeling pain and being compassionate and, looking at the world the way it is now, which is, which is painful. But there are people who have, you know, something to offer on a spiritual level and the ability to pull humanity up. And if the society condemns those people and hunts them and tries to do everything to rig the system so those people will be corrupted or those people will be, whatever it is, demonized, I mean, whatever they do, whatever, there's various levels of, sabotaging those people and, the movement that they bring into the world. And then, once that movement starts, turn it into a religion and make it into something that's a lower vibrational level type of, relationship with God and the things that they do, make it a materialistic, corrupt, materialistic system. And you see it time and time again. And some of it is just natural. Like, people think about the devil having a plan and, the way that things are worded in the Christian tradition. But a lot of it is just, depraved human beings and there's some scars and the power structure. And they just, have a built-in animosity to the higher. And they want to bring everything down to the lower. And especially, people of a higher level of consciousness. And that's, what's keeping humanity down. And until that goes, until those people are either, their souls aren't allowed to come back in or, something has to happen on a destructive level where they're wiped out completely, their souls are extinguished or whatever it is that, breaks up this construct, right, that's passed on now almost genetically and certainly socially so that there'll be a, value for people and souls to move forward and have a spiritual capacity to reach higher levels of consciousness, right? Which is now, the opposite is the case, right? To minimize and gaslight and, pretend it doesn't exist and mock, divinity and mock these things and, say like the way science does as well, right? Science where you have people who are smarter and oftentimes they have some spiritual development. Maybe they've had a few lives or something. Maybe they're even possibly, someone who's had spiritual lives in the past. But then they, develop this, animosity or this mockery of anything that's divine in nature, right? See, the thing about the spiritual is because we're trapped in a third dimensional body, it's never going to be concrete. That's why there has to be faith. You're never going to have material. It will be concrete in the sense of a, etheric world, right? An energetic, world of the spirit, which is never going to be material facts. It's never going to be scientific facts. People say there's this idea that they weigh the body after the soul leaves and, it's like 53 grams or 23 grams or something like that, right? And the soul doesn't weigh anything. That's just stupid. There's no material proof of a soul. I mean, you can have, past life memories, things seem familiar to you. You can have these things, which I've experienced, but they're not concrete, right? It's never going to be, something you can prove to other people. And it can't be judged on the level of the mundane, but also there are spiritual people or there are, quacks or semi-spiritual people that will just make things up and say, well, I know more than you because, I'm in touch with the etheric world, fake psychics and people like that who take advantage of the fact that you can't prove anything, but people have belief and, faith in these things as well. So it's, it has to be scrutinized and you can't really just, take things. I mean, even as a spiritual person, if you have a vision or you have a spiritual experience, you can't look at it like a material memory and you can't take it at face value. Even things like dreams, they're subject to interpretation and it never should be considered fact or concrete, just taking things lightly and being on a spiritual level and not try to, make them into material, concrete things that you can hang your hat on. Like just always realize you're only seeing part of it, or maybe you didn't understand all of it, or it's not a fact. It's something that's fluid and ever changing, right? And, so that's a hard thing for people to do, especially people on lower levels of consciousness and people without faith, right? And people want to make everything about all that you see and feel on the material level. Well, they're going to live crappy lives. Because you're a spiritual being that's here temporarily in a physical body, and you're limited to your access to your whole history and your whole and your whole spiritual nature. My microphone, there's interference with the Bluetooth that happens. It's a little store. It's raining outside, so I'm going to end this thing here. I'll talk about this more. You know, I've always bring this back around, but maybe I'll add something at the end of this video, or we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's it for now. Okay, so the one thing that I forgot, the one thing that I wanted to talk about here in the introduction, before we get into the other stuff, we're going to get into the Stop the Hammering Guy, cover of Trump and Stormy Daniels. Somebody sent me it. I haven't watched it yet, but I just know it's going to be great. And then there's some other things. Of course, Israel's going to come back up. But what I forgot to talk about in terms of this introduction about, you know, a soul having more spiritual tendencies. You know, I want to say old souls, but all soul energy was created at the same time. As far as I know, that's the case. So during the creation, there was soul energy, and it went to different levels and the periphery. In the Sajmark teaching, there is this idea of the center, which is where God is. You're going back to the center, you know, being centered, going inward, going, you know, not, I mean, physically inward, but spiritually inward. And you're going back to the source of all creation, which is at the center. And then the farther you get away from the periphery, the grosser it is, right? So the purer the soul is, the less gross, the more subtle the soul is, the closer it gets to God. Where purity becomes a barrier between, you know, lack of purity between you and connecting to God, right? And so when the universe was created, the soul energy manifested into various physical forms and spiritual forms. And the farther that you got away from the center, the grosser it would become. And so souls that are more subtle and closer to the divine, and that's the difference, you know, in terms of your soul's journey, they're going to be of a higher vibrational level and more refined and things like this. And so there's that part that I talked about yesterday. But then there's just your, you know, your biological physical age, right? And, you know, you might have past life experiences, or you have past life experiences and information and data, but it's not available when you're born. Like, you have to grow into it, and it gets pulled out by your experiences, right? Like, you don't know how to talk, right? You don't know anything, so you're not bringing in, you know, all these skills from a past life immediately. My microphone has these lights on lights on it, and it, you know, has a strong signal when it's all lit up, and then when the lights go off, that's when you get the breaking up of my voice, if that's happening. And I usually catch it, but sometimes I'm not looking at it, or, you know, I got to pay more attention on days that it seems to be acting up. One of my viewers said it was like interference in the, I guess, the Bluetooth mic. So Bluetooths, it's Bluetooths, and you know, some kind of interference blocks a signal momentarily. So when you hear glitches in my mic, that's what's happening. I don't know what to do about it. But anyways, you know, since 5G, I think it's a 5G, maybe, I don't know. But anyways, there's your biological age. And I said in a recent video, like, I just kind of, you know, all the things that I maybe brought in from a past existence, like, I just know how to function now. You know, I'm going to turn 60 in the summer. So, you know, it's like my life's over and I'm finally functioning at a higher capacity. But it takes all these events in your life to pull things out of you. Pull, you know, inner knowledge that you have and, you know, experience. And then, you know, you sometimes in life, there's things in your life where you're just good at them. Or like being an alcoholic, it just feels right. You know, like there's things you just fall into, good and bad things. And those are some scars. Like, it's just natural for you. It just feels good. It just feels like it's what you're supposed to be doing. And some of the negative things, and, you know, certainly aren't that in the case, but they're just very familiar to you. You know, then you have the good things, and, you know, things that you have experienced before. And it's easier for you. Like a soul coming in with no experiences, there's some advantage to that, but then they have to learn everything as a first timer, and they're just not going to be able to function on a very high level. But when you're, you know, a young person, that's why I call young people sort of dummies, because we're all like, we don't know anything in terms of things coming into our, you know, our awareness through relationships and through whatever it is. And And then you realize things that's the problem with, like a lack of continuity between lives, right? There's no conscious memory of a past life, so you've got to learn everything over again. You start off at there's this guy, I think his name is Yogananda. One of my friends read his autobiography. I guess he's got a big autobiography. But even as a young kid, he realized that he knew things that he didn't know. Like he was trying to, incorporate these things. He was actually ahead of his time because he was, starting to pull through these memories through, consciously from a past life, right? But he just, like as a kid, you just, you're helpless and you learn so much in those first formative years. I mean, all the things that walking, talking, using the restroom, being able to feed yourself, being able to dress yourself, like all these big, things that you do every day for the rest of your life, right? They're, all these milestones. And your brain, grows and your capacity grows more during that period of time than the other time in your life, right? But in terms of some of these more sophisticated things, you need years of experience to master these things again, even if you've mastered them in a previous existence. And then by that time that those things unfold, you're old and you're ready to die. And I've talked about the lifespan being too short for human beings, because just when you get good at life, your body starts falling apart in this whole thing. But I just want to add this little bit to it because, there's elements of people's internal worlds and what's going on with them, and that relates to their soul and whatever past life, whatever, position they are in terms of their relationship to the divine, whatever experiences they have. And, people want to judge everything on superficial levels, but it's really the person's essence, their soul, that's important, right? And, you have to figure that out for yourself because there's no help for you. If you're a, older soul, and, I say that older, but, more experienced, more elevated soul, and you have some spiritual tendencies and things like this system's lined up against you. Like you're considered an enemy. Like they know that there's saints that are coming down. There's know that there's spiritual people, and they want to do things that, the system is so materialistic and so degraded. It's purposely, conspiring against you to activate your higher nature. Everybody, and then particularly spiritual people, because they can disrupt the system. Anyways, let's get back to let's go to the Lawrence O'Donnell stuff here. So here's the hammer guy, Lawrence O'Donnell, and the title of this video is Why Trump's Lawyer Called Him the Orange Turd During This Stormy Testimony. This guy's a weird dude. Let's run the meme here.
Demanding to know, where's Nancy? Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
I don't know.
Where's the hammer? Is it on the, go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering. Call fuck Griffin. I don't care who the fuck to call. Stop the hammering. Empty out the goddamn control room and find out where this is going on. It's either there or out there somewhere. Out of control. Jesus Christ. Crazy sound coming in my ear. This stupid hammering. I told you why I wanted those words cut. It just sucks. It sucks to be out here with this out of control Any thing can come into my ear at any moment. These things. How do you say this guy's last name? Demanding to know, where's Nancy?
A lot of these guys, they're all twisted and weird, but there's something weirder about this guy. And he just, his obsession with Trump. Let's get into it here.
Well, tonight, we begin at the end, because this time, the end tells you everything you need to know about what came before that in the
This is not a case about sex.
courtroom today, where Donald Trump was called the orange turd repeatedly by Stormy Daniels and by his own lawyer. That's right. That's how Donald Trump's day went today. The woman he has paid more money to than any woman he hasn't married criminal defense attorney Susan Necheles repeatedly called her client Donald Trump the orange turd.
The way that we call you the hammer guy, right? You're the hammer guy, bro.
On what she thought was an effective cross-examination of Stormy Daniels. So imagine Donald Trump sitting in that courtroom today, slumped in his chair, leaving his eyes closed for long stretches, being forced to listen with eyes closed or eyes open to one of his criminal defense lawyers on whom he has lavished money provided by his political contributors. Listen to her repeatedly call him the orange turd. And Donald Trump is, of course, the most vain human being who has ever entered that courthouse. But his colossal vanity combined with his even more colossal stupidity leaves us unable to tell what he was experiencing. A normal person.
You really want to know what he's experiencing as this former porn star testifies about this whole hush money thing, which is a non-event, right? This should not be covered. You know, I'll get into this more with Bill Clinton, but it's so degraded, right? Like you're degrading, your hatred for Trump is degrading the presidency and humanity and the youth and things like this. You know, these guys are now the moralistic people.
Couldn't be more humiliated. Donald Trump? Was that the first time he's heard himself referred to as the orange turd? His lawyer was doing...
Let's go deep into this, his psychological reaction to being called the orange turd.
What he ordered her to do, which was keep Stormy Daniels on the witness stand as long as possible, in the Trump belief that simply minutes on the witness stand count as somehow scoring points against Stormy Daniels. The orange turd landed an hour into a belabored cross-examination by Susan Necheles that was repetitive, tedious, and almost entirely irrelevant. At 10:20 a.m., high-priced lawyer Susan Necheles said to...
Susan Necheles and Jonathan Pecker, these are some of the people on Trump's team. Susan Necheles.
Stormy Daniels, quote, isn't...
What kind of name? Where does the last name Necklace, what's its origin? It's like ethnic origin.
Isn't it a fact that you keep posting on social media how you're going to be...
Like that sounds like a porn name, Susan Necheles. But she did change the name. It was originally Pearl. My wife came up with that joke.
Instrumental in putting President Trump in jail. Answer, show me where I said I would be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail. Question, all right. Ms. Necheles, if we could show the witness J43, please. Question, do you recognize that as your post? Answer, yes. Question, and I don't see the word instrumental or jail. Ms. Necheles, blow it up a little bit more. Susan Necheles then shows the post on all of the screens in the courtroom for the jurors to see and for the spectators to see and for Donald Trump to see. And then she says, quote, you were responding to the post, someone else's post there. Answer, yes. Someone calling me a human toilet. So I capitalized on the joke. Question, the other post, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, AKA the human toilet, are their star witnesses, right? Answer, yes. You said, exactly, making me the best person to flush the orange turd down. Answer, yes. So, Susan Necheles brought the orange turd into the courtroom.
There's no way to bring it into the courtroom. Why would you bring the orange turd into the courtroom, Susan Necheles? That's just crazy talk. Look at this guy. His obsession with this thing. Like, nobody cares. You didn't get Trump because you can't get Trump. Because you need Trump, right? Like, you guys need Trump. When this election's over, and I don't know I don't know if Trump's going to be president again. I mean, Trump is so low energy right now. He's so broken that I don't even know, right? What's going to happen to him. You know, Trump's major condition looks like to be bitterness. Like he's bitter. And for a guy who I don't think wanted to be president, like I don't think Trump really seriously thought he was going to be president. I think he was just running to promote himself. And he took off, right? Because he was different than the other candidates because he wasn't really trying to get elected. He wasn't a seasoned politician. He didn't listen to his advisors. And that appealed to people. And then he got into it, right? And then he was like president and he got into that. And then, but it seemed like, during the last debate against Hillary Clinton, he just quit and gave up. And like he knew he was going to lose and he was like psyched, just to, capitalize on whatever was going on. Like he didn't really, he didn't fight back like he did in the other two debates. And he ended up winning. And then he got into it. And then it became a thing, competitive thing. He's very petty, very narcissistic. And then, all the rest of these things unfolded, the election, the COVID, the things. And he feels like he was cheated in some way, some wrong. He's been mistreated, and it's all about that. It's not like he loved to be president. And I've read that line over and over again where he says, what way is this to run a country? When the election was going, like he was the president and saying that in a tweet, like he was completely helpless. And he looks like he's just bitter and angry, and it's just about a revenge and, proving you deserve to win and all these things. And, he knows that he's always going to be this guy and that he's not going to, like, have the power or the ability to, be some great president. He's not going to be like one of the, whatever it is, make America, none of these things are going to happen. It's just going to be him winning the election and then all these court cases and how they deal with that, just drama. As much drama and as much Trump hatred as there was before, there'll be more of it his second term. And it'll be lame duck. The Republicans are just waiting for him to age out and move on from him, right? And then all the other people with him. The Marjorie Taylor Greens and all these people who, people gravitate to, but they're not truthers. They suck and they're just making things worse. And so, that's the Trump presidency. He's going to give Israel green light. They're one of his big supporters. And he's, there's just no good things for a Trump presidency. It isn't going to be as fun and, as like whatever it is. And the Democrats need him because they've built their whole world against anti-Trump, their whole political view and the media and all this stuff. And Trump's going to disappear at some point. Either he loses the election or, whatever happens to him. But they're not going to put him in jail because they, once he's in jail, like then what are they going to do? What are they going to talk about? This guy's obsessed with Trump, right? This trial, like every time I turn on the news, they're talking about this trial or something else. Well, all these things in Georgia. It's always, all it is Trump, the rest of the year till the election. And for the most part, nobody's watching CNN and MSNBC. They don't do real polling. And Trump is capped off at below 50%. Trump can't get over 50% of the vote. But Biden's already is at 42 right now. And so, like, what happens, right? Like, it's just people don't vote, what happens? And then there's, of course, the rigging of the system, right? That's, part of it as well. Like, the whole thing is, manipulated and whatever they want to have happen. But it's not interesting. Like, it's just because there's no, it's just two old guys who nobody wants to see this rematch, right? Like, they're rolling out Ali Frazier again, two corpses, it was interesting the first couple of times, and now the first two elections, and now it's jumped the shark. There should be something new, and they don't have anything new. Two guys who have proven to be bad presidents, right? And Trump is just broken, like he's just bitter and angry, and Biden is like he's just gone, and whatever his handlers are going to do, they're going to do, but he's not running anything, and I don't even know if there's going to be debates, and it'll be mildly entertaining, but it's neither one of these guys is performing well, and they're both deteriorating mentally. Like neither one should be even in the consideration of being president. So it becomes who cares, right? Like it's like a who cares thing. Like really, that's what we're doing.
And kept it there. The questioning about the orange turd went on and on. Stormy Daniels said, quote, "I don't see instrumental or jail there. You're putting words in my mouth." Question. So when you said you were the best person to flush the orange turd down, you weren't saying you were going to be instrumental in causing him to be convicted of a crime? That was not what you meant? Answer, no. Question. What does that mean? Answer. I'm pretty sure this is hyperbole. If somebody calls me a toilet, I can say flush somebody. See how that works? Now, trying to explain a joke.
You know, this is really bad for America. This is just how low, like America is sunk, right? And this guy's, wallowing in it like a pig. This guy seems like he has, they're all weird. And they get into weird stuff. All these people, Washington, D.C. people on the inside. And I'm sure he has weird sexual habits, right? And they're all degraded. Like, and if they don't engage in weird sexual stuff, they're desensitized to it, right? And, especially if these people who are liberal and their whole thing is degraded morality and weird sexuality, something that's, whatever it is. And they're trying to, slam Trump with this, but his conservative Republican base isn't hearing any of it. So who are they, your degraded audience that's, loves abortion, all these things, right?
To a lawyer in court is always pointless. Question. You said you were going to flush President Trump. Answer, I didn't say President Trump. It says orange turd. So if that's what's interpreted by you, question, what do you mean? Answer, I don't know what I mean. Question, you have no idea? Answer, I'm also not a toilet, so it's all... I'm asking you whether you knew what you meant when you said an orange turd. Answer, yes, I do. Question, what did you mean? Answer, I meant I'm not a human toilet, so if they want to make fun of me, I can make fun of them. Question, you don't want to admit you meant Mr. Trump? Answer, I absolutely meant Mr. Trump. Question, why did you say no? Answer, it doesn't say instrumental and putting him in jail. And so...
This is really bad. Like I said, this is the degradation of humanity, right? Like this is, the Monica Lewinsky thing with Bill Clinton. The Republicans made a mistake by dragging that out into the public because it became acceptable. Bill Clinton ultimately wasn't impeached, and there was a new way to deal with things, which is you didn't resign in shame. If this was if there was a scandal of this nature before Bill Clinton, the person would have just been done politically. And you would just, they would just resign in shame, right? Something of that magnitude. But Bill Clinton refused to quit, and he just got over it. It was more or less forgotten. And the Republicans brought out all this dirty laundry and all this despicable behavior, whatever was going on. Like he was cheating on his wife with this young girl, the cigar, all this stuff, right? The dress, these things, right? If you guys know the story. And, the people that they brought in that, that monstrous woman that Monica Lewinsky confided in, whatever her name was, don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. And it was just degraded humanity. And kids were hearing that. And this is what, people are supposed to look up to their president. And, it's the truth. These guys are scumbags. So I'm like not totally bummed by it. But you see the degradation that happened after Bill Clinton. And then you saw this thing with Trump. And Trump just followed Bill Clinton's playbook and refused to resign, right? And now the Democrats are doing the same thing to Trump. But no one needs to have a porn star associated with a president. And again, he wasn't president when he banged the porn star. Not that, it makes it any better. But, like, they're just bringing this in. Like, they want to embarrass him about this thing. But the people who are in the right wing aren't moving. I don't know about the independents. They all got, Trump fatigue. Put him in jail already, right? Stop with all these. He's got like 6 or 7 different active legal cases, and you guys can't stop him from becoming president. Just put him in jail already. What's really going on here? Like people are just tired of hearing about these things. It's just it's monotonous, and then degrading him as the orange turd as president, and bringing this thing in. Again, this whole thing. The Stormy Daniels things, the payoff money. Trump did all these things. He's a scumbag. But your obsession with him, and where are you going with this? Like, I don't even know what the point of this trial is. Like, I'm so, detached from it. Like, I don't even know why they're bringing this thing back up. What's the point of view? Like, what, he manipulated something, or the hush money? I don't even know, right? Like, who cares? He cheated on his wife with a porn star and paid her off. Okay, like, I mean, what? Like, like that's, just commonplace. That's just what they do. And to pretend that Trump is the only guy like this in all of Washington, D.C. or in the media is just silly, right? And so it degrades everybody. It just, it's a low vibrational thing. And by just focusing on it and getting obsessed with it and then never having any resolution, like, all right, we'll just, stop talking about this and then we'll go to another trial with Trump. Just another charge in another state, and one's federal, one's statewide, election fraud, whatever. And it's like, well, is he guilty? Because why is he not in jail, right? Because you guys can't put him in jail because you have no other. Without Trump, you have nothing. He's the center of your universe. Like, the whole thing is just, it's so degraded. Like, it's just, you're bringing down the whole system and the whole presidency, which like, the presidency is a joke. And these people are all scumbags. So it is truth coming out there. So, I don't know how I feel about it, but, it's like they're the most degraded party sexually. They're the ones with the most perverse sexual. Not that Republicans don't do things privately, but in terms of their platform, the, Democrats are all this liberal attitudes towards, deviant sexual behaviors. And, like, now they have a problem with it because, they don't have a problem with porn. They don't have a problem with degraded sexual behaviors. So what's the problem, right? That he paid this woman to not, talk about their encounters, right? Like, what's the issue here? There really is no issue. Why are you making this, wasting taxpayer money that is not going to result in him going to jail or any of these other things, right? We already know how this is going to play out because, when he's in jail, then yeah, okay. When he's actually in prison and he can't run for president, then, all right, this is real. Like, until that moment, and, maybe they're going to do that at the last moment, and, I don't know what the Republicans are going to do to pivot, and, just, they're tearing this thing into more and more of a mess for what, right? You got an aged, decrepit candidate who has his own lurid history of, weird, deviant, sexual sniffling, snoozling, groping in Joe Biden, who's, like, senile now. And you're pretending like that's okay? Like, you guys got a great guy and somehow Trump is going to win for what? Like, this is democracy. If Trump wins, he wins. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you think it's good or whether you think it's the end of the world. That's how democracy works. Of course, there is no democracy. So, why are we even pretending anymore? Like, Okay, so I just want to add something here. When I ate breakfast, and I turned on the news, and I watched a little of the Stormy Daniels trial thing. And it was a bunch of pundits, and one guy was saying that the defense hadn't proved their case. These are all liberal, Trump-hating people. And that maybe Trump would do a stupid thing and be lured to testify. He'll be, because he just would Trump. But other than that, it's Trump's word against the liar, the proven liar, and ex-con Michael Cohen, right? That's scumbag. And so what they're trying to prove is Trump paid Stormy Daniels off. And Trump is saying he didn't know anything about it, and Michael Cohen did it on his own. So in a sense, Stormy Daniels' testimony is really irrelevant because it really matters whether Trump ordered Michael Cohen to pay her off or not. And, he did. I mean, it's like if you're a Trumper, it's just, you got to realize Trump's a scumbag because Michael Cohen's a scumbag. Trump was associated with Stormy Daniels. Do you think Michael Cohen paid her off and she never had sex with Donald Trump? Like, it's stupid. I think he gave her, whatever, $130,000 to keep her mouth shut when they didn't have, they didn't have any kind of relationship. It's stupid, right? When Trump has said, grab him by the you-know-what, like, Trump's a scumbag, right? Like, he's always been a scumbag. He cheated on all his wives and all these other things. And just, he's just what he is. And Michael Cohen worked for him. Like, Michael Cohen's a scumbag, and Trump hired him to do scumbag things. You think the guy was just, Trump's just a really nice guy, and Michael Cohen was doing things without Trump? No, it's just stupid, right? It's just ridiculous. But they can't prove it, and Michael Cohen's not a reliable witness, And they really don't want to put Trump in jail anyway because, all of it, like all the things I've said before about Trump being the center of their universe. So the whole thing is just, an exercise in futility. And this guy is, these lawyers are saying Trump, the prosecution didn't prove its case because they don't really have any substantial evidence that Trump ordered Michael Cohen to do the payoff. And the whole thing is just totally Washington, D.C. and big business. And it's all scumbags, right? It's all scumbags, right? It's just scumbaggery. And Trump is like whatever how old he was when this happened. He was like probably in his 50s, and he's sleeping with a porn star. He's married, and come on, right? Like it's just, just the diseases. Like it's just, maybe if you're a young man or something like that, it could be explained away. But like, what are you doing with your life, right? Just because you have access to a porn star. Again, he's married and he's got kids, and this whole thing. He's a public figure, and it's a bad decision, right? And look at Stormy Daniels. He calls her horseface now, but she's just an obnoxious person. And this is the kind of person that Trump's associating with, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. And I think Trump's probably worse than both of them. They're scumbags in their own way, but Trump is, what he's done with Israel, what he did with the Operation Warp Speed. I mean, he's just a bad person. For all you Trumpers, like you just got to deal with it. Like this is true. Like these aren't false allegations. They're not putting him in jail. They're not ruining him because they want him and need him around to push their agenda. Like that's the reason why Trump is the center of their universe, right? Their whole political platform, everything. Like that's true. That's like a statement, right? Look at what they do. Tune into NBC and CNN and listen to Democrats, and all they ever talk about is Trump and Trump supporters. I mean, that's all they have. Like that's their excuse for doing everything. That's their victim statement. That's their reasoning for doing everything that they do. That's censorship or deplatforming people. All the stuff that happens with the truth community, it all centers around Trump and Trumpers and the QBs and all that stuff, right? That's all that's all Trump, and they're using him as an excuse to giving themselves permission to do bad things because of Trump, and Trump supporters have to be stopped. And to rearrange that in your mind to say that no, he's going to save the country. That's why there's no, come on, like just stop it. Like it's just this whole thing is just a mess. Like it's just a bunch of scumbags, or like rats on a sinking ship. They're all trying to grab a piece of whatever they can grab before the ship sinks, with everyone else just unaware of what's going on, while they grab as much wealth as they possibly can before the ship sinks, and everyone else goes down with it, right? Okay, so things changed a little bit yesterday. I was making this video on the 10th, but I had a headache the day before, and it was minor in the morning, and then it just went south. And I napped. I slept basically through a bunch of times till about 2 o'clock, and I still didn't feel really well enough. My stomach was really upset. So no reason to say anything. The migraine's gone. I feel great today. But I saw this video, which I'm about to show you, about Jen Psaki and Morning Joe. A combination, a dream combination. And it starts off great. So I'm going to transition to that after this last segment here. But I did watch a little bit more news because, there's a trial of a president is supposed to be a big deal. So when I was a kid, they impeached Nixon, and that was huge. It was like big. I mean, I was a kid and I knew about it. I never watched the news. Like it was a long process, and the Watergate scandal was like, it was a whole, whatever it was, whenever that happened, it was the biggest thing for a long time, right? There wasn't these major events happening like every day. There wasn't the information, there wasn't the internet and all this information out there. There wasn't the sensationalization of the news, at least not like is now. And there was the Bill Clinton scandal, which is also used, right? There was Whitewater, and there was Monica Lewinsky, and all this stuff, right? But there was nothing like this with Trump, because Trump was impeached twice, and that failed. And now there is multiple criminal and civil suits against him, right? Like, there's so many, and they just don't have, this just doesn't happen to a president, and I can't keep him straight because I don't take him seriously, and I don't think the majority of Americans do. And I think that even Democrats and liberals have kind of moved on. Like, Trump isn't that much of a big part of their life. If they're real, big into being Democrats, and I don't know how no one's really a Joe Biden fan. I mean, come on. And so, they're not going to, they're going to be upset every time Trump gets off on these things when he doesn't go to jail or whatever it is, right? And just, the whole thing, it becomes, you just get overkill because it should be a one trial, like an OJ trial. It's, that's a big trial, and there should be an up or down verdict. Like, they should put everything into one thing. But he's got stuff going on in Georgia and New York, and then federal things. And it's like, we all know that all politicians are crooked. Everyone has a sense of that. Like, there's just criminality involved with politicians. And, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton both had problems with classified documents, and, the whole thing with the election. I mean, people, don't necessarily believe, especially independent people and swing vote people, that the Democrats are clean, right? And certainly the Republicans don't. And with these trials, they give you enough for Republicans to make it look like Trump's being demonized and being treated unfairly. And they give you enough for the Democrats that Trump is a scumbag, that both can sort of believe what they believe. But I think everyone's just over these things because, if they have all these cases against him and he really comes out pretty much unscathed, then he becomes president again, like, WTF, right? Like, the whole thing's just like, why are you wasting our time? The whole thing with the hush money, right? The hush money case is, we're degraded now. So a president banging a porn star and it being Trump, like, people just don't even care. Like, he was still elected with the whole thing with grab him by the boop. So, people are degraded morally. Like, he shouldn't be elected for that. Biden shouldn't have been elected for his weird behavior with kids and women and sniffing them. But they are. Like, people don't care about that. Like, that's acceptable behavior for the president because of Bill Clinton and just how degraded everything is morally. Like, that's okay. You do that, that's fine. And it's just like, well, probably all these presidents were weird. We just know about these guys. And so that's where humanity is right now. I mean, we've just, dumbed down and degraded the process, right? So there's that. And so this hush money thing, I mean, if you're a Republican and you believe that Trump didn't bang a porn star, like, you're like a silly person. Like, he banged the porn star. Like, he's that kind of guy. Like, he's totally that guy, right? It's totally believable. And the whole story and him bringing her into this thing and the, creepy porn lawyer guy and all this stuff. Like, that's Trump, right? That's who Trump is and who Trump's always been. Like, there's no doubt that he would do things like that. He cheated on all his wives. He is, sexually promiscuous. And he did it. And then paying her off, that's another thing Trump would do. Like, the guy didn't give his own money. Do you think Michael Cohen did that out of the goodness of his heart, right? He was paying the woman off for Trump because that was Michael Cohen's job. So Trump did this. He's 100% guilty of this, whatever it is. But compared to Joe Biden, well, I don't know who's worse because Trump and his family walked away with billions, from the Saudi Arabians, Jared Kushner and his daughter, his, whatever. And, I can't say who's worse in terms of their degrading the presidency. I mean, you're going to think, if you're on one side, you're going to think one guy. If you're on the other, you're going to think the other guy. But they're both got their, there's a case to be made against both of them, right? But it just doesn't matter. Like, the whole thing, it's a mess. You got two guys who have no moral compass, who are old and senile. I mean, one's worse than the other, but they're both, too old to be president. One's senile, the other's bitter and angry and just about revenge and all narcissism. He's not here to make America great again. He's not here fighting for you. Trump isn't here fighting for you. But the whole thing, this is a minor case compared to some of the other things, like voter fraud is a bigger, issue. And, he's not going to go to jail for any of these things. In this case, they're already saying that it's he said. It's a Trump against Michael Cohen. Neither one of them is credible. But, you can't base your decision. Like if I was on the jury and God, thank God I'm not, right? But if I was on the jury, I think Trump's 100% guilty. But there's not enough evidence to say he is. Like he's, it's a loophole in the justice system. Like I know he did it, like we all do. I know he paid her off. But, again, is it something worth criminal prosecution? The whole payoff. Like, is it really that bad of a thing compared to everything else that goes out of Washington, D.C. and things like this? So what I'm saying here is the whole thing is a nothing burger. And they're just obsessed with it. Like, it goes from one court case to another. Every time I turn on the MSNBC and CNN, they're talking about another court case. And, it's just silly. Like, it's just, like, it's not, it loses its oomph, right? This should be a big thing. A president is being accused of criminal activity and all these other, various lawsuits. And it's been constant for the last couple of years. And he's polling ahead of the other guy. I mean, that just tells you, everything you need to know. That he is, right now, if they did the election today, he would be president. And so he's winning in the swing states. And, none of these cases are having an effect at all on the election.
Did you mean? Answer. I meant I'm not a human toilet, so if they want to make fun of me, I can make fun of them. Question. You don't want to admit you meant Mr. Trump? Answer. I absolutely meant Mr. Trump. Question. Why did you...
Why isn't his attorney saying President Trump? Why isn't she calling him his attorney should be calling him President Trump, right? That's what they do, right? Or at least former President Trump, right?
You say no. Answer. It doesn't say instrumental and putting him in jail. And so it went with Susan Nicholas repeatedly pretending to quote things that she wasn't quoting and getting caught by the witness, Stormy Daniels, who then proved that Susan Nicholas had mischaracterized what she was presenting to Stormy Daniels. And Stormy Daniels...
It didn't really mischaracterize it, because her saying that she's just a person to flush him down the toilet is saying, these things. She just said it in a more sophisticated way, right? Like Stormy Daniels was basically saying that none of that stuff matters, right? Like, it's just, the whole thing is goofy. Like, this guy, look how serious he is. We got him. We got him this time, you guys. We got him.
Daniels did not spend 1 minute in law school learning how to do that. That is a sample of what happened in the morning. But as I said, the most important part of the day, by far, was the end. That's when Judge Juan Merchan got the last word and provided the most important possible review.
Just do it. You're nailing it, Hammer Guy.
Of Stormy Daniels' performance on the witness stand, as did the Trump lawyers. Stormy Daniels left the witness stand at 12:23 p.m., 2 hours after Susan Nicholas had invited her to repeatedly call Donald Trump the orange turd to his face in the courtroom.
The orange turd. This is the orange turd guy.
Three more far less colorful witnesses then took the witness stand, and Judge Merchan ended testimony early today, on the early side, at 4 p.m., so that the Trump defense could have some time to raise 2 motions, both of which were denied by the judge. First, criminal defense attorney Todd Blanche, who's the lead defense attorney in this case, and who has already been so thoroughly humiliated in that very courtroom that he enters, exits, and spends the day at the defense table looking like the saddest man in the room every day.
That's you, bro.
Todd Blanche argued a motion to the judge to rewrite his gag order on Donald Trump to now exclude Stormy Daniels from the gag order so that Donald Trump could...
So you can call her horseface.
...tweet about her now or do whatever he does on Truth Social. Todd Blanche insisted now that Stormy Daniels had presented what he called a, quote, completely different version of events. Donald Trump should be free to publicly respond to that completely new version of events. The judge asked for an example of what Todd Blanche thought was a completely different version of events. Todd Blanche quoted Stormy Daniels testifying, quote, I felt the room spin in slow motion, and a few other lines, to which the judge said, I don't see a new set of facts. The district attorney argued that the additional elements of Stormy Daniels' testimony were not inconsistent with her previous statements. Judge Merchan explained.
Okay, so again, not serious, right? She's taking Stormy. This is like Stormy Daniels is an opportunist and a porn star, and she's kind of weird. And just like with Jimmy Kimmel when he had those mushrooms that represented Donald Trump's, manhood, and Stormy Daniels picked them out. Like, these guys are obsessed with it, right? Because Jimmy Kimmel wanted to know that they were different shaped mushrooms, orange mushrooms, because he really wanted to know what Donald Trump's junk looked like. Like, this is their fantasy, right? Like, this is how obsessed they are. So I was going to show you a bunch of other things. I got some stuff to do with RFK Jr., and there's just always stuff with Israel. But then yesterday, YouTube recommended this video to me.
This week on Morning Mika, sake bombs.
Well, I can confirm that the President of the United States does not spend his time tweeting conspiracy theories. He spends his time working on behalf of the American people.
Oh boy, when it comes to managing...
So that's supposed to be a killer line. Now, there's a thing called Morning Mika. I don't even know what that is. Morning Mika. Is there a more unlikable person than Mika Brzezinski in the news? In a sea of unlikable people. Like, there's who's likable in the media? The gumball guy, maybe. It'll go Trump's lies and gumball. Maybe a few other. I mean, that because of the gumball thing, but maybe some of these people are slightly likable and maybe outside the news. But as news people, they're not. And Mika's just the most obnoxious and weird of all of them. But Jen Psaki is horrible at her job. And she called these sucky bombs, right? Because Jen Psaki said, this derogatory term about conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories. And, like, that's the worst thing to be. And to me, it's like, you guys aren't even human beings. You get up and you gaslight people every day. You repeat lies. And it's embarrassing. Like, there's no shame in how bad they suck. They know that they're presenting to the stupidest of people. Not stupid. Low consciousness, people who are so detached from real life. Like, no real person would watch these news people. No, if you took people from ancient times when they were who had critical thinking skills and educated, or just had good perception of reality, or just good wholesome farmers and people who were living life like real people would live it. They would see through all these news people, right? They would totally see through them. So let's watch that intro again here.
This week on Morning Mika.
Morning Mika.
Sake bombs.
Sucky bombs.
Well, I can confirm that the President of the United States does not spend his time tweeting conspiracy theories. He spends his time working on behalf of the American people.
Nobody really believes that, Psaki.
Oh boy, when it comes to managing the message, Jen Psaki doesn't mess around. As press secretary, she turned the White House daily briefing into viral viewing. And now she's doing the same thing from the anchor chair with her own hit show on MSNBC. It has been a wild ride from the campaign trail to the Oval Office, and today, Jen is breaking down the key lessons she has learned along the way, whether it's communicating with politicians or preschoolers. After all, it's tough to tell the difference sometimes. I'm Mika Brzezinski here with
you are.
Simone Sanders Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki.
Whoa, I didn't see this. Huma Abedin. She was married to that one dude. She was Hillary's, love interest, all that stuff. She was married to that guy. What was his name? Anthony Weiner, right? Anthony, I had to go look it up. Anthony Weiner and Susan Necklace and Stormy Daniels. This is wonderful.
Saki. And guess what we're doing, guys, this week? We're showing
Sucking. Are you guys sucking like normal?
our range. Last week, it was
So your range of suckiness and gaslighting people and talking down to them and talking about how being a conspiracy theorist is the worst possible thing that you could be because, that would involve not submitting to the narrative of the beast.
dogs and live
And
chickens.
chickens.
And this week, that's right. And this week, it's all about say more. Lessons from work, the White House, and the world. That's, of course,
Her show has got, I assume, bad ratings, but she's very stiff and like really bad at her job. I was covering her for a while. Okay, so she has horrible ratings. I think they've moved her to prime time. But her initial show, she got 1.1 million viewers, doubling CNN's show, and then it drops significantly. It says here, Jen Psaki, MSNBC show facing ratings struggle 1 year after ex-White House press secretary joined the news network. Okay, so it says here, Psaki's Monday show only managed to garner an average of 133,000 viewers in the 25 to 45 demo. And, she's not going to grow her audience. Like, it's just there. Like, this is going to suck. And she sucks. And so the show's going to continue to tank until they fire her. Like, that's, that's Jen Psaki's future.
Jen Psaki's new book, and it's amazing. Over the course
I'm
of
sure it's amazing. I'm sure it's like the best book ever written.
a career.
Thank you.
Okay, spoiler alert, I'm in the editing process, and none of them read it. It's hilarious, including Jen Psaki. They're going to show you that none of them read it, which means they're liars. This is an infomercial. This is PVC, right? This isn't even close to being real news because they're promoting this book, and they do it for the first 5 minutes or whatever this is on Morning Mika, and clearly no one's read the book because there's going to be a moment where you're like, oh, no one read the book, including Psaki, right? And so this is great. This is going to be wonderful.
Jen was a spokesperson for the State Department, White House communications director for then President Obama, and ultimately the first White House press secretary for President Joe Biden before stepping down in 2022. These days, you can catch the mom of...
After her atrocious lying about COVID, right? Which would, if you were a news person, you would hold her accountable for that. The lies about COVID and all the things that were around that. The bloop and all these things, right?
of two, hosting Inside with Jen Psaki on MSNBC, where she offers words of wisdom to viewers and would-be felons alike.
If you're planning on taking part in a criminal conspiracy, I would definitely suggest not taking handwritten notes outlining the entire plan. But that seems to be exactly what happened.
She's so stiff. She sucks at her job. Like, that was not a good clip. That's not a highlight. That's a low light. But they're all low lights because she's not good at it. She's not good. She's very stiff, and she doesn't have any sort of a flow to her.
But before we
so
dive
funny.
into the
Look at
book,
her. Look at Uma.
Jen, just congratulations from all of us.
You were married to Anthony Weiner, the disgraced, and you were Hillary Clinton's right-hand man.
We love you.
All of you, and for all of your support, all three of you. I appreciate it so much.
Woo.
We
Girl power, woo.
we are your biggest fans and
We are,
supporters.
woo. They just happen to be us, woo.
But the book's amazing, and it's really helpful to a lot of people. I just want to start with explain a sake bomb for those that don't know.
The sucky bomb.
I didn't coin this term, first of all. I'm very honored by it. It is like a drink that you can have at a restaurant. I'll start there.
Oh.
But a sake bomb.
Sucky restaurant. If I was at a restaurant and they served Psaki bombs, I'd be like, this restaurant isn't for me, right?
It's true, Mika. We'll get one the next time the four of us all get together.
I'm in.
I think what it means
Yeah, you are, Mika.
is when I would shut someone down in the briefing because it was disinfo, it was inaccurate, or
It was conspiracy theorists and disinfo, and I would shut them down with my Psaki power.
just the end of our line of questioning. Now, my sisters, because we all have siblings, and siblings are the best, and they make fun of you, got sake bomb sweatshirts that they sometimes would wear on family Zooms just to poke fun at me, but I think that's the meaning.
That's adorable.
It's so adorable. That was so adorable. I can't believe how adorable that was. I mean, it was like a kitten. It was like a baby kitten. It was like almost, maybe even a hedgehog. I don't know. It's pretty adorable.
Nice sisters. Okay, so this is your first book, and it's not a memoir or a White House tell-all. It's your guide to communication. Something you say you
Like, look at the pose here. Look.
wished you had when you were in your 20s. Tell us why.
I think we've all experienced times where we made mistakes, where we wish we would have done things differently, where we even hit a certain age in our lives. For me, it was 40 for whatever reason. When you just start learning things you wish you would have known earlier. And I realized that there's a lot. Over the course of 20 years, I've learned things like how to give feedback.
This is somebody who looks out and looks at Washington, D.C. every day.
Back to different kinds of
Unless it's just a fake background, which it could be.
bosses, what to do when you make a mistake, how to push back and fight back bullies. And I mean, like the Kremlin and Putin, but it doesn't have
She fights back. She's always fighting back Putin. She tells you how to fight. If you see Putin in the street and you read Jen Psaki's book, you can kick his ass because he's going to try to bully you. And Jen Psaki knows that you can fight Putin with her words and her her White House briefing skills.
have to be them. It can be others. How to prepare to speak publicly. And as I was thinking about what kind of a book I wanted to do, I realized I wanted it to be something that would be full of advice I'd give my kids when they're old enough, but also that I wish I would have had when I was in my 20s.
Well, Psaki, I have to tell you, I wish I had this book in 1996 when I walked into the White House and had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
So, it's a book that for everybody who's going to work in a Democratic administration. So you'll sell 20 of them.
Like operating along the lines of a fake it till you make it attitude until one
We've
of
all
my
been there.
mentors in the White House told me, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And
Wow. That was amazing saying. Or did you get that in a fortune cookie? Which was it?
I think there's so much in this book that seems like it's basic advice in how to operate in the world. You've just done it at the highest levels of scrutiny
I think
and
these are all fake backgrounds. They're all using the fake backgrounds.
intensity. And one of the things that you say early in the book, which I love, is that we have come into a world where it's monologuing more and dialoguing less. And it really
Boom. All these catchphrases.
does feel like where basic communication is evaporating in today's political climate.
Oh my God. It's a breakthrough from Psaki.
Why do you think that is?
I think social media is a part of it. Social media has a lot of good aspects too. So does all of the
No, it doesn't. You guys hate social media. That's why you hate conspiracy theories. You've lost the narrative. You've lost control. They're saying it's less dialogue and more monologuing. Well, you guys are the biggest monologuers because you won't allow anything that's outside your bandwidth to even be discussed. And you guys got a set story given to you by the powers that be, and you're gatekeepers to pretend that anything else outside that story is just a ridiculous conspiracy theory, right?
Technology we all use, right? I mean, how would we FaceTime with grandparents or cousins or others who don't live near us? But it is much easier to be a bully and a warrior online than it is to have that conversation in person. And I think especially for people who are even younger than Simone, it's become through COVID, through just the rise of social media platforms, the way so many young people communicate. That's okay, but it also has meant people have lost the art of being able to communicate in person. And I'm still a believer. Maybe it's old school.
Oh yeah, you just said that's the end, right? That's the end then. If people have lost the ability to communicate in person, our civilization's over, right? Oh, people can only communicate through devices. Well, then that's that's a sign of the collapse, right?
That's where some of the best conversations happen.
Like that's where you should go with that. You should say this is a big problem. This is not okay. This is a huge problem where people can no longer interact face to face, which is true, and they're brushing it off here.
I concur. The best conversations do happen.
My turn.
in person, and that's where you learn things. I love the book.
It's the best conversations are in person.
I love the cover, very glam.
That's what I spent most of the time on the cover. Like I didn't, I don't have much to offer, but the cover was wonderful.
Is currently in my bookshelf.
Thank you so
at
much.
home. Yes, we love the cover, honey. We just sitting. We love it.
You're sitting on the cover. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. You're wearing a green dress. There's a light bulb on it. There's a light behind you. It's on, and there's some curtains. It's an amazing cover, and it's just the cover is wonderful. And I can't say enough about the cover.
So in this book, you also write about the 3 questions that you were asked the most during your time at the White House. Please, Jen, tell the people what the questions were and what the answers are to the questions.
Oh, my God. Okay. One of them is, what's Joe Biden like?
We don't need people actually asking that question. What you see is what you get. Like he doesn't have a secret side. I mean, we've already seen him sniffling and drooling and smelling and snoozling and groping these, kids and women. And we've seen that. Maybe there's like worse stuff. But what you see is what you get. Like nobody should be. So Joe Biden is not a mystery.
And we all know this a little bit, right? But the thing about Joe Biden, yes, he's the president of the United States and the leader of the free world. But I felt after I'd been even working for him for just a couple of weeks, and I think I said this to him, actually, which I prefaced by saying, this is a weird thing to say to a president, which anytime that comes out of your mouth, like, where am I going with this? But
where are you going with this, Psaki?
I said, I feel like I've known you a long time because he's somebody who has such empathy, which we've seen, and such humanity.
Oh, my God.
And is so connected to his family.
He's senile. You've seen him do stuff where you're like, this, like, if you're close to somebody who has Alzheimer's or has some sort of dementia, and these are reporters. They're supposed to be observationalists. The guy does stuff in public that shows you he's got dementia. When he's even more tired, he's in personal situations and meetings. We've seen him in meetings, right? And you're like, oh my God, this guy's gone, and he's a president. Like you should be concerned. You should be, you're supposed to be a reporter, and you're pretending like this guy is some kind of. The best you could say about the guy is he's a lifelong politician. And he's kind of a professional politician and all that implies.
And to the families of all of the people who work for him, I just adore him as a human being.
She adores him.
And I didn't know that would be part of my experience. He's also, I think, a lot tougher in a good way and a lot more disciplined, I would say, in terms of how he handles difficult things like negotiations around the world and with Congress than I think people give him credit for. And I saw a lot of that. The second question people always ask me is like, what's Peter Doocy actually like, right?
Peter Doocy? So your big questions are Joe Biden and Peter Doocy.
And first of all, he's very tall. I say that I'm 5'.
He's tall. He's very tall. Like the cover of my book is it's a great cover. He's very tall.
He's a giant person. But 2, we had our back and forth in the briefing room, but he was always professional when he came to see me and wanted to talk about issues.
Look at this. I'm Douchey and Psaki, a couple made in heaven.
He loves his wife. He's a father. I tried the best I could to see him as a human being.
You tried your best to see him as a human being? Like, what?
There is a performative aspect to the briefing room. We can critique that. I think it's kind of a problem. But
yeah, performative. She's actually speaking truth. So conspiracy theories are not valid, even though you're admitting that it's performative.
Dislike Peter Doocy at all. And now I'm totally forgetting the third question in my own book. And it may be because it's my second day of my book tour.
Because you didn't write it? Is that why? Because you had a ghostwriter?
We'll have to read it.
Wait, does she know that? She just asked the question.
Exactly.
This is a teaser. It's a teaser. People
That's
gotta
right.
tune into
I'll
the
come
book.
back on.
Or you could tell her what the question was since you asked the question. So these were preset questions because this woman up here could have said, all right, I know what the third question is, but she didn't read the book, right? And so no one else did, and they can't say what it is, right? So I'm editing here, and I wanted to add to what I was going to say. about them not reading the book. So this is a big part of the book, right? What was the 3 most questions asked to you? Like this, she would do in an interview, and she doesn't know the 3 most asked questions that she got when she did this job, right? Like, these aren't questions that she's getting out of the blue because they didn't read the book. So these were things, this is like a joint venture between MSNBC and Jen Psaki. They're trying to promote her. They're trying to bring this, this is like a woman empowerment show. They're trying to bring a woman's audience to her, and she's failing. She's going to go off the air. She's going to get canceled because she's losing to the other, she's losing to MSNBC. She's losing to CNN. And CNN's like sucking. Like, like they're falling apart. And after the election, it's just going to go down. The ratings are going to go down, right? So, like, this is it. Like, she's done, and she sucks at her job. And so they're trying to pump her up here in an infomercial type of way, which is the opposite of what journalism is supposed to be about. And so this is like a cocktail party thing where someone says, what are the 3 most questions that you're asked? Or what are the most questions you're asked? What's the number 1 thing you're asked about? Nobody cares what Joe Biden is like, right? Like, that's not some mystery. And so they're trying to sell her book and say, well, there's like great things like she tells you what Joe Biden's really like. Nobody cares what Peter Doocy's really like, especially the people who are going to buy her book. And so the people who are in Fox News aren't buying her book unless they're, the people who watch Fox News aren't going to buy Jen Psaki's book. Republicans aren't going to buy Jen Psaki's book. Peter Doocy's fans, if he has them, aren't going to buy her book. So that's not a selling point. The Joe Biden thing isn't a selling point. And so those aren't some in-depth questions. Oh, what were the questions you were most asked? Well, what's Joe Biden like? What's Peter Doocy like? And so you don't know what the third one is. And, you supposedly wrote this book. Like, you didn't read your own book, right? And then none of these other women did because they would remember that, right? Like, one of them would remember it. None of them do. And they could say, oh, no, it's this, right? Proving that they read the book. And it would be like, validating the fact that they're pushing this book and pimping it out there, but they didn't do it. Like, it's so silly, right? Like, it's just ridiculous. They're pretending that they read this book when they didn't. And that's not, this is not journalism. Like, how can you say it's such a great book when you didn't read it? Oh, it has an amazing cover. Oh, yeah, okay. And so it's not going to sell, and she's not going to get good ratings because it's just superficial fluff. And nobody cares about these things. Oh, what is it like to be a Washington, D.C. insider without any of the dirt, right? And when you're coming in and saying Joe Biden is a wonderful man and he's such a great leader, that's what you do every day. You push this guy out. And we can all see he's senile. He was corrupt. He's never been great. Like, he was always, he's a plagiarist and, he's just a piece of crap, right? And he's a lifelong politician. Like, everyone knows that. And now he has dementia, and, like, you're trying to sell us that? Like, that's just, you're gaslighting everybody. It's just performative. Like she was saying how she doesn't like the part of the White House press room being performative, but they're being performative here. They got fake backgrounds. They're selling a book that none of them have read, even the author. This is great. I talk about this all the time because this is their point of view, is that the worst thing you can be is a conspiracy theorist or anti-vaxxer, and that if you don't believe in the official story, you're the worst kind of person and you're on a path to being a terrorist. I mean, that's what their worldview is. Demonizing people who question people who conspire and lie all the time. Saying that you're some kind of evil conspiracy theorist is saying that, oh, you believe that people are liars, you're a bad person. You believe people are liars, you're a bad person, right? That's their worldview. That's how they shamelessly suck. I mean, it's, they're just going out there gaslighting people and saying, oh, if you believe that politicians and corporations and people in power and everybody else lies, you're a bad person, right? And there's words for liars, right? There's that Ricky Gervais movie, The Invention of Lying, where people didn't lie, and then one guy learns how to lie, and he becomes like a Jesus-like figure. Like, he just works his way up through the various levels because he's lying and no one else is. And lying there's a competitive advantage to lying and conspiring. And I talked about the werewolf game or the Wolfman game or whatever it's called. It's now a TV show called The Traders. And it's a psychological game invented by some, Russian student to show that people who have more information, the ones who are the wolves or the traders in the game, villagers and faithful are the other people in the two different, there's two different, it's a different spin on the same game. And you can buy the game, right? It's like now a board game. But you have two people, in the 2 or 3 people. In the show, it's 3 people. In the game, it's 2 that are either a wolf or a traitor. And they have to kill somebody. And then everyone else comes together with the traitors and votes out someone else who they think is either a wolf or a traitor, right? Who are the people who have inside information. The traitors are working together to manipulate the game. And they almost always win. They almost always somehow deceive the people and are able to do it because they pretend to be a faithful or a villager, but they're really the murderers, right? And it shows that people have more information and are being deceptive, have a competitive advantage in a society the way it is now. And so this gaslighting to call out people who are, again, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of bad stuff that goes on in the truther community, bad information, a lot of stupid theories. And, there's governmental people who are involved, and there's just dopes and, people with poor character qualities who put out lies even though they know it lies. I mean, volunteers, people who are not working for the government who just go out and lie and whatever it is, right? And they're part of the problem, people making a little coin or whatever they're doing to exacerbate the situation, right? Twitter recommended a guy, I think his name is Matt Wallace, and this piece of boop, like there was a video he put out that said, if they're about to kill Drake, and Drake, they're going to Jeffrey Epstein Drake, the singer, the rapper Drake, because he's in this, whatever's going on with him. One of his security guys died, and I was covering this thing with him and Kendrick Lamar on my other channel, right? And so Twitter recommends this video, and I click on it, and the video's about, is this guy, I think it's this guy, Matt Wallace. I think the guy's name's Matt Wallace, I'm not sure. But the guy says, I have inside information. I have a document, like, Alex Jones type stuff. I got the secret document that shows you they're about to collapse civilization, and every time I put this video up, they suppress it. But here it is. Twitter's recommending it to me, right? And, this guy's just a piece of boop, liar, just making things worse. And that, there's lots of people in the truth community like that. But even with all that, the truth community represents a possibility, at least the higher is available. I was talking about this stuff in the beginning of the video, right, where there are higher developed souls, that are farther along in their spiritual journey. And they're, it's a spectrum, right? There are people who, there's different levels to your spiritual elevation and your knowledge and your previous experience here on planet Earth and, where you are. And, people look the same. They look, people have, it's not like they look different, right? And you could have, really highly developed spiritual person in a family, and the rest of the family is not like that at all. And the person's going to feel like, not really fitting into their own family, right? Just because of they have some, spiritual elevation. But there is this misconception that people who are financially and, not financially, but who are, prominent in society, politicians, famous people, smart people, any of these people that are like on TV and, news people, these successful people are somehow more evolved. And they might be more evolved than some of the lower level, low consciousness people who don't have the ability for abstract thought. They might be a little bit smarter. They might have a little bit more spiritual development. This might not be their first rodeo, but they're not the top of the, they're not the cream of the crop, right? They're just, they're still, if they're engaged in the political process and this, power and power brokers, and they're saying Joe Biden is a wonderful man, like these clowns, and even any of the people, they're of a lower nature, right? If they're just submitting to the beast and collaborating with this, carrying the water for the deceptions and putting all this disinfo and being just basically bad people, they're not evolved. They're not successful. Like they might seem materially successful. These are people who they either have connections, which they always do. They have some sort of connections, but they went to prestigious universities. They were, most of them have some sort of credentials academically and professionally where they work their way up, and they're, stars in their profession, right? Jen Psaki is a star. How many people wanted the jobs that she has with the White House, in the political jobs, and now in terms of a media job. And so it seems like, well, she's cream of the crop. These are people that are flagged as, potentially brilliant people who are above the milieu, but they're so not. Like you can look at them and be like, oh my God, these people are ridiculous. They're silly little people. Like these are silly little frickin' people. The Hammer guy, Trump, Biden, all these people. They're silly little people. They're silly little people talking about silly little things and taking them really seriously. And it's just all imaginary and it's just made up. And they don't get it. Like these people are failing life. Maybe this is what they're supposed to do. So in that sense, yes. But it's a sideways step. The one thing that I was fascinated when I started to embark on my spiritual journey doing the Sagemark system and finding out and realizing, that this is like one of the key teachings is that all the great things that are being done, and there's great things, human beings have accomplished, in terms of architecture, in terms of, whatever it might be, scientific breakthroughs, in terms of athletics and music, and, people have produced wonderful things, works of art, right? There are people who are, masters of their field, and they've reached this level of mastery. There's just something, evolved about them. They've reached the top and pinnacle of whatever their art form is, right? And there's wonderful things out there and great people in terms of, achievements in the material sphere. And all those people are at the very same level spiritually as everyone else. That they haven't evolved at all spiritually. Laterally, horizontally, yeah, they have more going on. Like they've expanded their horizons, laterally, right, horizontally. But in terms of, going vertically or going inside themselves, they haven't evolved at all spiritually. Now, they might be closer to getting on the spiritual path, right? This great teaching in the Sagemark system. Master Charji, the third master of the system, said this, that you have to understand that the highest part of the lower is still lowest than the lowest part of the higher. And so you could be a person just sort of feeling out the spiritual process and be on the, taking your foot off the lower rung. Like everyone else has 2 feet on the lower rung, the first rung of the ladder of spirituality. And you could just be lifting your foot off and like sort of dipping your toe in the water of becoming a spiritual person. And you're already on a higher level than everyone else. And if you're on the first rung, and there's, many rungs, you're just on the first rung, you're much higher than the average person because most people aren't even attempting any kind of, soul-based spiritual journey. They're just completely absorbed in the beast. They're completely, saturated and hypnotized by the illusion that we all have here on this, third dimensional planet. They're caught up in the video game, right? You're looking at a way to escape the video game when you're a spiritual person. That's, you're looking at a way to get out of the video game. And so, if when you understand that, everyone else is looking and being, just roaming around the video game and indulging in what's there. They have no intention of mastering the game, solving the game, right? They're just there enjoying the game. Where you're actually, you're working towards escaping from the trap of the video game, expanding beyond the illusion. And so, that's the difference, and it's a substantial one. And that's why these are silly little people inside of a little video game that are, holding the water and trying to keep everyone else, trapped in there. And they're actually working for the game makers themselves. But, they've bought into it, and they've, it's like the Matrix movie. The guy who wanted to go back in, the Cypher character, he wanted to, go take the blue pill and go back in because he didn't like how harsh it was outside the video game. Only spirituality will save this MNFing world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important from the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.